We are starting with a chapter which is Human Nervous System, chapter 21. And here we are going to understand the mechanism by which the vertebrates, we are taking humans as an example, the vertebrates are able to bring about the coordinated movement. And this coordination is brought about by a strong connection of the brain, the spinal cord, and the various types of nerves, which eventually affect the muscles to bring about highly coordinated activity. And this chapter will take you through the neural mechanism of neural system of the human beings, the mechanism of neural coordination, that is the nerve impulse transmission, the conduction of the impulse, and finally the muscle movement. So here we are going to understand in detail about the human nervous system. The human nervous system has been classified or divided into two types: the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. When we talk of the central nervous system, the central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord. And these are actually the sites for both. They are the sites for processing. That means in the brain, the thinking process goes on and other things, and processing and control. And these two structures, that is the brain and the spinal cord, have cranial nerves and the spinal nerves to further facilitate or to pass on the information to the next system, that is the peripheral nervous system. So when we talk of the peripheral nervous system, it is actually it consists of nerves. The peripheral nervous system will consist of the nerves that connect the CNS to each part of the body. So if we see, the PNS is the connecting link between the CNS, and also it is two different parts of the body. So PNS is very, very important. Now, this PNS has been further divided into two types, that is the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Here we are trying to understand the brief outline. Now, the somatic nervous system, it is that part of the peripheral nervous system or the PNS which is associated with the voluntary control of the body movements. So here when we talk of the somatic nervous system, it is actually voluntary. The movements which are under the control or which are regulated by the brain. So that is the movement of the skeletal muscles. So body movements, these will fall under the somatic nervous system, and it is voluntary. The autonomic nervous system, or it is also known as the visceral nervous system, it is when we talk of autonomic nervous system, autonomic nervous system, it is that part of the system that forms the working of the smooth muscles, the heart muscles and the gland cells, etc. It is actually controlling the involuntary actions, because heart rate is not under your control as such. The heart beats automatically. The muscle move, the inside the muscles, that is again taking place on their own, the contraction. So this is the working of the it forms the working of the smooth muscle sense and all involuntary functions, and it influences the working of the internal organs, such as the heart rate, the respiration rate, the digestion process, all that, the peristaltic movement within the esophagus and throughout the gut, all that is taking place with the help of autonomic nervous system, which is involuntary in action. So, therefore, since this autonomic nervous system is mainly associated with the working of the visceral organs of the body, we also call it as visceral nervous system. Now, this autonomic nervous system has been further classified into sympathetic. Autonomic nervous system has been classified into sympathetic and parasympathetic. Now, what is meant by uh, sympathetic and parasympathetic when we talk? You must have heard the term before. Sympathetic is actually the type of nervous system. It is all, remember, it is all involuntary. Now, it has to take place on its own. So, we are dividing the autonomic nervous system into two again. Now, sympathetic nervous system, it is actually activated during the emergency situation. So, it takes place activated during emergency situations. Emergency situations, not necessarily very life threatening, but it can be a sort of action against a particular type. For example, sweating. If there is an increase in the temperature, the sweating takes place automatically. It is not under your control, but it is a mechanism for the body to fight against an increase in the temperature and to maintain the body temperature, to cool down. So, sweating is one example. Then, the dilation of the eye, increased heart rate. Sometimes there is, on seeing certain things, the heart rate increases. So, therefore, this is sympathetic nervous system functions during the alarming situation or helps the body to cope up with the emergency situations. Now, when we talk of the parasympathetic, it is activated, the parasympathetic activated during relaxed state. That means when the body is at rest or it is in relaxed frame. That is, it is almost the functions of the parasympathetic is are opposite to that of sympathetic. So here the body mainly functions to conserve the energy, and it will slow down the heart rate. Then there is an increased intestinal activity. The digestion will be better. So all these, heart rate will be slower. So these are parasympathetic actions are opposite to that of the sympathetic. So here when we try to understand the CNS, the brain, that is the spinal cord, these are the components of the CNS along with the PNS, which reaches to different parts of the body through the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, somatic and the autonomic, bring about a well organized activity, and it is the one of the most complex mechanism by which an organism is able to respond to different kinds of stimuli, and also it is able to cope up with the varying changing situations around its the organism. Now, when we are talking of the PNS system, we talked about the nerves. That is, it is mainly brought about with the help of the nerves. Now, the PNS has two types of nerves. That is the efferent or the sensory, or the efferent or the motor nerves. So, we have two types. One is afferent and the other is efferent. And if we try to understand that what is meant by afferent, afferent are nerves that transmit information from the body to CNS. So afferent will transfer the information from the body to CNS, and they will carry whatever the stimuli to the brain. The motor nerves, on the other hand, transmit the information from the CNS to the various organs or tissues. So, CNS over there has an opposite function to that of the efferent, where all the information is processed within the CNS, and from the CNS it is brought about to the affected or whatever tissues or organs to bring about the desired movement or the activity or the function. So here in this video, we have tried to understand that how the nervous system in human beings functions so as to bring about the effective mechanism or the method for the human beings to survive and to bring about coordinated activity.